I enjoy coming to work every day knowing that clients are depending on me to guide them through whatever financial needs they have.
Every client we have is different. And so it's really about finding out what's really the most important thing per client.
With financial planning, everything is interconnected. So a comprehensive plan means that you're taking care of income needs now, income needs in the intermediate term, and income needs long term. We'll do an asset cycle portfolio. We'll do a riskalyze test. We'll do a life insurance audit or a life insurance review.
And so when we build a deep relationship with our clients, then we can take a step back and then we can look at different options to help them specifically get to their goals. One of the things I feel our job is as advisors is to introduce strategies to clients that maybe they did not know that they were out there. But it's our idea, our job to come out and say, have you ever thought about this?
And the planning it's not always about income, but a lot of it is also about the legacy. So the element of family is very important to us, and it's important to our clients. Hello and welcome to Financially Speaking. I'm your host, Jeff Bush. I'm joined today by my partner and colleague, Earl Schultz. Earl has recently joined our firm as a senior financial consultant as we merged our two entities. Earl has run a very successful practice up in the Reading area and also the Allentown area. So now we're a combined entity, of course, with our offices right here in Pottstown, as well as our location in Norristown. So we've expanded our footprint quite a bit. So we wanted to have Earl on the show today so he could lend some of his expertise. So Earl, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Hi, good Jeff. It's great to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, so today what we want to talk about, so Earl's had quite an extensive career in the financial services industry. He's been a financial advisor for almost 30 years. And of course, Earl and I share a lot of the same philosophical strategies. And one of the things that we want to talk about today is, the theme of our show is the retirement survival guide. So we're going to give our viewers today an opportunity to receive a white paper which is entitled The Retirement Survival Guide. And we thought that this was an important topic today in the environment that we're operating in, and that is that it's a extremely volatile market, a volatile stock market, as well as a volatile bond market. And Earl, really, it's like something that we haven't seen very often in our careers.
No, we haven't. We've had a couple of very large drops in the market, but this is unusual in a number of different ways.
Yeah, it really is. I think, one of the unusual things that I've observed is that it's unusual for the stock market to be declining and the bond market to be declining at the same time. It's really only happened a couple times in the course of my career. So we'll talk a little bit about that. First, I want to just take care of a few items. So now we have 4 offices, and we'll put a screenshot of where we're located. But we have an office, in addition to our office here in Pottstown at 152 East High Street. We also have an office in Trooper, an office now in Birdsboro, and an office up in Allentown. So we have 4 locations to serve all of our clients. So before we get started on this white paper, I want to throw an offer out there to those that are viewing today, and that is that if you want to receive a copy of this white paper, you can email us at info@informedfamily.com, or you can give us a call. We have our phone numbers up on the screen. Also, lately we've been in the news. We've been on somewhat of a public relations campaign, really the last couple of years, and what you see on the screen are a few of the publications that we've been featured in, including the U.S. News and World Report, the USA Today, Market Watch. I was interviewed for a piece on KYW News Radio, and some others. So let's get down to this retirement survival guide. So when you're sitting with a client, and they're obviously concerned about the type of market that we're in right now, what are some of the things that you're saying to your clients to help them through these difficult markets?
Part of what I'm doing is reminding them that the markets go up, the markets go down. They always have, they always will. Although this one's a bit unusual in some ways, that could be said about virtually every market we've had, every bad market we've had. They all have their unique problems to them. I also talk about the planning that we have done for them. Now, this is, again, if I'm speaking to existing clients, I talk about how we set them up with a plan, knowing in advance that we are going to have markets like this. And the plan already takes into account the fact that these markets are going to occur. So this is nothing that is unexpected, and it has been planned for.
Yeah. And do you find just overall, when you're going through a market like this, does your phone ring a lot? Do you get a lot of widespread panic when this happens, or for the most part, are your clients pretty much, living with what's happening, and there's an expectation that this is part of what the plan is?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I get that question from a number of different people. They say, your phone must be ringing off the hook right now. And I say, no, I'm not a stockbroker who put all your money in stocks and mutual funds and so forth. Remember, we have a plan. Our clients understand that they have a plan. They know how this plan works. They realize that we've already taken into account difficult market situations such as we're in now. And so the answer quite simply is no, we do not get many calls at all. We get very few calls from concerned clients.
Yeah, I would say I would echo that with what we've experienced. We have a handful of calls with people that have questions or concerns. But I would say the vast majority just kind of go with what's happening, and knowing full well that this is really to be expected. And I think you make a good point in that the downturn that we're experiencing right now, that in itself is not unusual, because we've had those before. We've had, I think in my career, this is probably the fourth significant downturn in the market that I've experienced, and each one has been characterized by something different. There's something different that's driving every recession or every downturn, and really this is no different. So that's a really good point. I want to take some time now to go over the asset cycle portfolio, because I think the asset cycle portfolio really fits in nicely to what we're talking about, and that is, and we're going to put this up on the screen so that our viewers can look at this. But Earl, I want maybe you can sort of walk through what asset cycle portfolio really means, because it might be a term that our viewers might not be familiar with. But I think when you grasp the concept, and we really do this on this one page, when you grasp the concept, it really allows our clients to be able to handle risk maybe in a different way if we're using asset cycle. So what do we typically do when we're talking to a client about the asset cycle when we first introduce it?
We're talking about how we're going to really reduce the effect on them of these bad times in the market. We're going to separate short-term from mid-term, from long-term income and growth, for example. And one of the things I like to drive home with clients, Jeff, is talking about job descriptions. We always want to have job descriptions for our different assets in here. And what I've started using, the example I've started using with folks I talk to about it is, think about a prescription medication. When you take any prescription medication, that is designed for a specific purpose. It does one thing really well, but if it's used in any other way, it really is ineffective. The same thing is true looking at different financial products, if you will. Every financial product was designed to do something quite well, but if it's used in the wrong way or at the wrong time, it doesn't work so well at all. So when we put together an asset cycle plan, Jeff, we're actually assigning a job description to each and every asset that we have, every part of that asset cycle plan, so we know how and when each asset is to be used and in conjunction with what other assets as well.
Yeah, and I think once you do that, and that's probably why your phone doesn't ring.
Yeah.
Because if you have and this is really the essence of financial planning, and I like the analogy that you're using with a job description, because if you have an asset, let's say for example, you have an asset whose job is to produce short-term income, right? So whatever that is, let's say, just for purposes of this discussion, let's say it's an immediate annuity that's designed to pay out income for a short period of time. Let's say it's 5 years. What's going to happen with that immediate annuity is that it's going to produce predictable income for a short period of time, 5 years. And if you look at the overall financial plan, we could be planning for a 30-year retirement. So if that's the case, this short-term income is really only taking care of those first 5 years. And then what happens after that, we're going to migrate to now the midterm income plan. Mm-hmm. So what's midterm income? Well, midterm income could mean years 6 through 10. So with that strategy, we might have what we refer to as a 5x5. And a 5x5 simply means that we defer for 5 and then we take income the next 5. So as we migrate into the midterm income plan, we're taking a little bit more risk there, but still not a lot of market risk. There's still relative safety in that bucket, if you will, or the job description of that strategy is still a relatively risk-averse strategy. So now, what have we done? We've covered 10 years of income. That's pretty significant, because now, once we've taken care of the 10 years, we're now into year 11. Once you're into year 11, now we're into the long-term income phase. And then once we tap into that strategy, or that bucket, if you will, that job description can now take on a little more risk, because now we have a much longer time horizon. And if we look, even historically, if you look at 10-year, the performance of even the broad stock market, if you look at the S&P 500 index, if you look at that over 10-year periods of time, the vast majority of them, if not, I don't want to say 100% of them, but the vast majority of them are going to show pretty significant positive returns over a 10-year period of time.
That's right.
Is that kind of the way that you look at it and explain that to your clients?
Yes, exactly. As you said, as you excuse me, as you go into the midterm income, you can take a little bit more risk for a little bit more return. We should have, and then the long-term income, again, a little bit more risk yet, but that bought us 10 years before we need to go into that long-term income. That bought us a 10-year period, which is more than the length of a typical full market cycle. So if the market goes down during that time, we have the ability for that market to recover for that long-term income bucket. We don't have to worry about it going down a bit now, because that will come back. And in the meantime, the income we need today and for the next few years, we've got that taken care of. That's already safer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the conversations we're having right now with our clients is we're saying, hey, your income has not changed. Yeah, yes, it's true the market has gone down, but your income has not changed. And that's because they're really tapping into either the first bucket, the short-term bucket, or the second one, the midterm bucket. And as you said, market cycles usually go in I always look at it in a 7-year cycle.
Correct. Yes.
Could be shorter, could be longer, but usually we're in a 7-year cycle. So that long-term strategy, I mean, if you can have the discipline to be in a long-term strategy, either whether it's long-term income or growth, then I think you're really going to benefit from what the market can typically give you over a long period of time.
Yes, absolutely.
So okay, so that's good, and I think we should also mention that when we develop these strategies for our clients, we have a universe of products and strategies that we have access to, and the beauty of what we're doing here is we operate in a fiduciary capacity, and that means we're independent. We act in the best interest of our clients, and we can truly research the marketplace and get the best product that's the best fit for our clients. And I think that's an important point to make here today, Earl, because I think when you're working with a financial advisor, that fiduciary role is so important, and I think that's something that you want to look for.
Yeah, I think that's critically important, and I've noticed that the public is becoming much more aware of that importance. Many years ago, I didn't get questions from people, are you a fiduciary? Now, that question is coming up quite often,
Yeah.
and people want to know that they're working with someone that has their best interest in mind and is going to always put that interest first above their own interests.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that, and I've experienced something very similar, and I think the reason for that is that I think the whole fiduciary concept has gotten more mainstream press.
Absolutely.
So I think like now you see articles in the Wall Street Journal, et cetera, about that important fiduciary role, and it's something that that we take very seriously, and it's a critical part of what we do. So today we're talking about the Retirement Survival Guide, and we're going to offer this to our viewers. And if you want a copy of the Retirement Survival Guide, we'll make sure we get that out to you. You can send us an email at info@informedfamily.com, or you can call us at one of the numbers that are up on the screen. We've been doing this show here on PCTV for 9 years. It seems like time's really flying, and when we do the show, we do it right here in our offices in Pottstown. So right now we're on the 4th floor of the Security Trust Building as we record this today here in July of 2022, and it's really, we're kind of in the middle of the year, and hopefully at the end of a pretty significant downturn in the market, but we don't know that.
That's true.
We don't know if it's the end.
That's true, and that really, Jeff, points out all the more why people need to have a plan in place, because no one knows what the market is going to do what it's going to do next. So we have to have that plan. I know I probably sound like a broken record here, but it's just that important to make sure you have an income distribution plan in the retirement years.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of reasons why it's so important to have a financial plan in place. And Earl, I want to ask you some questions that I think are relative to why it's so important to have a financial plan, and things that we go over with prospects and clients. So, for example, here's a question: What if you died tomorrow? If you died tomorrow, what would happen to your financial plan? You know, would your spouse have enough assets to live comfortably? You know, these are that's a question that is a critical part of why we do our planning. What if your spouse died tomorrow? You know, and when we go back to the asset cycle portfolio, and we're going to put that back up on the screen, that one-page graphic. That umbrella that sits on top of that is a protection umbrella, and typically, or what would we put in that protection umbrella?
The one on top there, protection umbrella, is typically going to be some way of dealing with the possibility of long-term care. We know today that your chances of needing some form of expensive long-term care are greater than 50%. I've seen estimates as high as 70, even 75%. So we want to make sure that people have the opportunity and understand the importance of having a way to deal with those potential expenses should they occur.
Yeah, and I think, is it your experience, Earl, when you're sitting down talking to a client, are a lot of your clients maybe in denial about the reality of what may happen with long-term care?
Absolutely. More denial over the need for long-term care than I believe any other part of financial planning, in my opinion. People just feel oftentimes that, well, it's probably nothing that's going to really affect me in the future, but it does. So the denial is definitely there.
Yeah, what I have found is the people that are usually more receptive to the idea are ones that have had a real life experience in their own family. A lot of times it's their own parents.
Yeah.
Like, so you might be talking to somebody that's in their 50s and 60s, and their parents are in maybe their 80s or even 90s, and they've just recently been through an experience. Or maybe it's an aunt or an uncle, but it's someone very close to them, and maybe they were directly involved with their care.
Yeah.
And then they come back and say, well, we better make that an element of our plan.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Once it hits close to home to them, as you said, then they understand the importance of it much more. I would say probably the most common response I get from people when we talk about needing long-term care, and I'm sure it's jokingly to some extent, but they say, I have my long-term care plan in place. It's called my kids. I'm going to just move in with my kids. They'll take care of me. And my response to that is always, have you talked to your kids about that? Are they in agreement with that plan?
Yeah, I think that's, I think you're right. Sometimes they say that jokingly, or they say they're just going to, take their own life, and and of course we know that that's not a viable strategy either. So I think that comes back to the denial part of it. They come up with maybe some ideas or some strategies that really aren't practical. So I think it's our role as financial advisors to bring these solutions and these strategies really to the forefront. What about that other part of the graphic on the asset cycle portfolio, the bottom, that legacy transfer bucket. How do we typically handle that part of the plan?
Well, that part of the plan is to take care of, as you said, legacy, what may be left over. And we are certainly planning that people are going to have money left when their time on earth is done. And so the question becomes, to whom is that money going to go? And just as importantly, perhaps, is how are you going to get that money to those people or that person tax efficiently? So that legacy that legacy bucket on the bottom is really looking at transferring wealth to the next generation or to whomever you would want that money to go to, and doing it in a way that is most efficient and subject to the least possible amount of government interference from taxes, probate, and things like that.
Yeah. So typically we'll be looking at life insurance strategies to do that, because that's often a very efficient way to transfer assets. And I think the other thing that the value of the life insurance is, if there is often a premature death, a lot of times there's income that's lost, and Social Security benefits possibly, pension benefits possibly. So the life insurance becomes a very critical part of the overall financial plan, because when you look at what happens when someone dies, and for some reason right now, I know in our practice we've been dealing with, a fair amount of these situations where, one of the spouses has passed away. The life insurance plays such a critical role in this financial plan. So it's not just the stock market volatility that we're concerned about. We're also concerned about, the health and the longevity of the people that we work with.
Yes, absolutely. And if I may, Jeff, I'd like to insert here that we're fortunate today that in dealing with long-term care insurance, for example, there are a number of great choices available. There are things available today that we didn't have several years ago, such as if you need the long-term care insurance, the money is there for you. But if you don't need it, the money is going to your family anyway, tax-free, things like that. So it's a good environment today to really be considering long-term care protection.
Yeah, I think the insurance industry has really done a good job in being proactive in designing these products so that they're really friendly for the consumer. Because I think, when I was doing long-term care planning 20 years ago, that was not an option. And we were looking at more traditional long-term care insurance solutions. And I think one of the main objections we got two main objections. One was, what happens if I never need the care? What happens to all those insurance premiums that we paid? That was one objection. And the other objection was the unpredictability of those insurance premiums. Because these long-term care insurance companies were giving out pretty healthy rate increases to their customers. And I think the solution that you just gave with, where we're talking about long-term care being covered through a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider, with those types of products, the costs are more predictable, because it's inside of a life insurance policy, and you don't have the fluctuation and the unpredictability of the premiums. Earl, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about risk, because that's really one thing we haven't addressed here, but I think it's important. How do you talk to your clients about handling risk in their portfolio? How does that conversation go?
Well, the first thing I would mention is we need to find out, of course, how much risk they're willing to take. And I found that many clients don't really know the answer to that. So we asked them initially, do you feel that you're more of a conservative or moderate or aggressive risk taker with your portfolio? And they'll give me an answer to that. But then the next two questions often undo that answer, if you
Yeah.
will. We'll say, what do you consider, given your risk tolerance, what do you consider a reasonable average rate of return annually that you should be able to expect on this money? And we still have people that are thinking very high double digits even occasionally, and yet consider themselves rather on the conservative side.
Yeah.
So the other question we go to then is what percentage, at least temporary loss to this portfolio would be acceptable to you at some point in time? And because we, like you, are dealing with pre-retirees and retirees, we're finding out that that number is almost always not more than 10%. People are looking for more conservative type investments.
Yeah, and I think just if I can add to that, what we've done is we've used a software program that's called Riskalyze, and Steve, our partner Steve, is pretty much runs that program for us. And what Riskalyze does is it takes a series of questions and it really quantifies someone's tolerance for risk. And it's not always an age-based calculation either. In other words, traditionally you might think, well, if you have a younger person, they have a higher tolerance for risk, and if you have an older person or someone that's close to retirement, they have a lower tolerance for risk. That's not always the case, and what happens with our Riskalyze software, it really quantifies that. So we go through a series of questions and we can determine what the score is of somebody's risk tolerance, and they can really we can really take their temperature and see where they're at. And then they come up with a score that's on a scale of 1 to 100. So we can see if they score at 50 as an example, that means they're moderate, so that their portfolio should be moderate.
Right.
Their portfolio should reflect how they're scoring. And then the other component of Riskalyze is that we can go and look at a portfolio. So even before someone becomes a client, we can look at the assets that they have, and we can assign a score to that. So a lot of times the conversation that we'll have is, oh, well, you scored a 50 on our Riskalyze, but your portfolio came in at 85, which is aggressive. So a lot of times someone might not know how aggressive they really are, particularly when we're looking at retirement plans through their employment. So for example, a 401k, because that 401k allocation may have been done 20 or 25 years ago when they were a much younger worker, and it hasn't been updated since. So, well, Earl, I want to appreciate you. I do appreciate you coming in today and joining us as a guest on our show here at Financially Speaking. And I think we had a very good conversation about a lot of things. We talked about our asset cycle portfolio, we talked about risk, and we really talked philosophically about some of the planning that we do, particularly in this volatile market that we're in. So I want to make an offer again to those that are listening or watching, that they can pick up a copy of our Retirement Survival Guide by simply emailing us or giving our office a call. So with that, we're going to sign off today. This is Financially Speaking, and I'm your host, Jeff Bush.